So they're trying to make sense of all of this information. And Paul, coming from the mind of being a Pharisee, being this very highly educated, highly intelligent person, has the ability to unpack all of it and explain it to us in a very well ordered and well mannered way. And one of the things I want all of us to do, so when you read Paul or you hear an argument from like a Muslim polemic against him, I want you to go back into I want you to go back into the Gospels and see what Jesus has to say about it. Okay, because this is one of the biggest things, right? People say, "Oh, he disagrees with Jesus." Does he? Does he? He doesn't.
No, he
Go read
doesn't.
it for
Yeah,
yourself, and we'll unpack this too as we continue to move forward. But that's just one thing I wanted to get off my
excellent. Thank
chest
you.
here.
Yep. So let's continue then. Right now, Paul is one of only two Pharisees whose writings have survived. I believe the other one is Josephus, if I remember correctly. I need to check that. So very little Pharisaic writings have actually survived, but Paul, his writings have survived. And possibly, I mean, this is because Paul was such a famous person. Well, such a famous person, one might say there was some kind of divine, hand in his writing surviving because he was instrumental in building and spreading the church. So Paul wrote the largest portion of the Bible, and he wrote it in the shortest period of time. So he was a prolific writer. He obviously did a great deal of thinking. He then applied his mind and he wrote. So he wrote more than half of the New Testament, and he wrote it over a period of 17 years, and about half of that was written over just 3 years, from 61 to 63 AD, which would be just prior to his death. So he probably knew his time was limited, and he applied himself and he really started to produce a lot of great thought. I think he realized if he didn't do this now, he would not have an opportunity to do so in the future. Now, remember, Jesus also collected people who are often uneducated, but Paul was a very, very educated man. So he was able to apply that knowledge to and the thought of Jesus and apply this. How do we apply this to the church? How do we use this? And we'll get more into that as we go. So during this time, he wrote Philemon, Colossians, Ephesians, Philippians, Hebrews, 1 Timothy, and Titus. And four of these books he wrote while he spent time in prison. He was
Mhm.
actually quite prolific a writer in prison. Now, another thing that sets him apart is that he was not an apostle commissioned by a congregation. Now you can look at Philippians 2:25 or 2 Corinthians 8:23, where a congregation commissioned someone. Nor was he commissioned by the prophets. Right? He was directly commissioned by Jesus Christ and God the Father. He had a vision on the road to Damascus. He was visited on the road to Damascus. He was on the way to persecute, possibly even kill Christians that didn't exist yet because he invented Christianity. So he went there to kill people who didn't exist because he was going to create the thing that existed, and then he was going to, whatever. Excuse my sarcasm.
Right, right. That makes sense though. Like that's just how we do history. We just disregard the facts and we just kind of, just say whatever we want to say because hey, you know what? We live in our own fantasy world, the
Yeah.
fantasy world of Muhammad, and we all know the fantasies of Muhammad where he was bewitched and he thought he was doing a thing he wasn't doing for 6 months or 2 years, depending upon the
Who knows
source.
how long that was exactly. So, by the way, we've got a comment here from Crank who says Paul challenged Peter due to Peter's capitulation towards the Jews, but Peter repented. Now, I don't know, the specific citation is not there, but if that is true, then that's interesting and it might be worth looking into as well.